Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the June 18th Municipal Budget Workshop meeting. This meeting is being held with the benefit of public notice as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Carabelli?
Here.
Ms. Phillips? Here. Mr. Whalen?
Present.
Mr. Reparo?
Here.
Mr. Ty?
Here. And Councilman Farrell, would you lead us in a salute to the flag?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. And so the first item up for discussion is the Department of Finance budget. Kathy, I'm assuming you're going to speak on behalf of the Department of Finance.
I am, thank you. There's not really a whole lot to report in this, and so I'll take any questions you have, but I'll start with finance and just give you a brief overview.
Kathy, if I could just, up front, could you just let us know what document you're referring to? As
Okay.
What document you're looking at, so that we can be looking at the same document
So
with you?
these are our department worksheets, yes, that you got from Edmunds, not the state document, right, the other ones for our departments.
Okay.
Yes, that shows the 5-year trend
Okay.
of each line item.
Very good.
So, and it always starts with salary and wage and has totals for that, and then it does O&E and then has the, individual line items for different things under the other expenses. So, when you look at salary and wages, the total, $319,900 budgeted last year, $388,283.67. We got very specific this year. And the major addition here is we had to add an amount for our temporary Director of Finance and CFO for the first half of the year that was out.
We're basically getting one for the price of two. For
We
one.
sure were,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
And I would venture to say that Al's worth almost 2 anyway, so he was good.
He was pretty good.
Yeah,
Answer your question just regarding SW. The fact is though that we're not probably gonna be hiring anyone, and we're gonna try to, anticipate a hire in the next, hopefully in the next several months. If we're fortunate enough to win the appeal, which I don't think there's a high probability of that. Couldn't we experience, and I think we just go up about someone else in that department?
that's right.
Couldn't we expect, I think, my opinion, 3, maybe 2 aggressive to that category?
It's possible, right? So when we first put that in, it was with, this was before we settled the issue with the prior CFO, and so we were still assuming that full salary. And then we also added in, the half a year for Al. So that amount was spent because he was here for almost half the year. But now we have a vacancy in the CFO position, and we're going to have a vacancy in the assistant CFO position. So my hope is that both of those positions we will fill as quickly as possible. So we already have the CFO job advertised, and we'll probably be starting some virtual interviews in the next couple of weeks. So, but you really go to kind of a policy decision as to what you want to do for vacancies, because we have other departments that have vacancies in there too. And there's usually a different philosophy among CFOs even. So my philosophy is that if you think you're going to be filling that vacancy somewhere within the year, and you're not really sure when, but it's going to be within the year, and that you keep the budget in there. And then if you don't think you're going to fill it, or you're going to hold off on filling it for a while, then you might want to make some adjustment for that. And my reasoning is that you keep it, fairly consistent, right? We still have the position. So it's not like we reduced positions and we're never going to fill it. And so you don't want to kind of give a false sense that that salary and wage, line item is reduced because we must have gotten rid of staff. Well, in vacancies, that's usually not the case. So I have seen some that sort of adjust the budget for a percentage amount for attrition in some departments. So sometimes that's done. But, you have to be careful when you're doing that. I like to budget for the positions. And, especially if we have a pretty high confidence that we're going to fill them. And this way you don't see those kind of peaks and valleys in that salary and wage line item from year after year. If we reduce the salary for the vacancies, next year, we're going to have to come before you and say, hey, look, this salary and wage line item jumped up because, last year we had vacancies, this year we don't, and it might appear that we're increasing positions.
I can appreciate what you're saying. I'm not saying that, we reduce it considerably, but I think that, based on what we're looking at now, we're trying to find as much savings as possible
Okay,
in the budget. I think that's an area that we can hopefully capture.
right.
Maybe we have the same numbers last year, 340 or 345 or something like that.
Yeah,
But when, we may have two positions that are going to be vacant, and obviously, that'll be well noted for next year.
right.
It may be something that, when we're trying to move some money, some savings from the budget, I think
Right.
that's a good area.
So, and I can add to that too, that on that note, when this budget was first put together and Al and John did a lot of work doing that, Al's philosophy is to reduce for vacancies. So there are many instances where we did reduce the budget for vacancies. So, and I won't know to tell you that until we come upon it, because these vacancies in this department just happened really since we put the budget together after that. So, but some of the other vacancies have been since the beginning of the year. So, we reduced.
Jody?
Yes, Kathleen, my question is this, and I see where Anthony's going, I kind of agree with some of his philosophy. My question is this, it's almost like a 12% increase, am I correct? 11 point, am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so even if you cut it 6%, right? My question is, and I think you alluded to that, is that if we were to fill that position and you cut it by 6% this year, would we be looking at an 18% increase the following year? If we filled that position?
Not necessarily.
All right, that's the
Yeah.
question I have.
It's gonna vary depending on the position and how much you reduced in order. So we can take a look at it and look and see
So there's some wiggle room.
if there's any vacancies in here that weren't accounted for that have happened, and I'll start right here in finance and see. But, my hope is that, we've really had a vacancy in the CFO position really only since June 1. So it hasn't even been a full month yet. And then, we don't have the vacancy yet in the assistant, but that's coming tomorrow, starting tomorrow, so.
So, with
So I can
the,
look at that. There may not be huge adjustments, but I can look and see what we might be able to, adjust.
With those two vacancies, Kathy, what is the quickest that you would anticipate filling both those positions?
Well, there's a lot of considerations that are going into it, so particularly for the assistant CFO position. So there's a couple of different roles there, and we're trying to look forward to, January 1st, when, we're going to have a lot more employees with the consolidation of the fire districts here with the township. So we were going to have to look at staffing adjustments for us, particularly for the administrative staff to support that. So, for instance, Rich, that assistant CFO position takes care of payroll and then some other, finance functions. And so with the addition of new staff starting in January, do we want to, maybe get a payroll person in and then a person that could fill a finance role, because they're two separate functions. So I don't know the answer completely. We may have, somebody in for the finance side of it sooner than we have a payroll person in, or, we might get lucky. And I also thought too that we already are getting on applications for the CFO position. If we find a CFO, which would be great news, and I anticipate we will, we might have somebody who was our second or third choice that might be interested in the assistant CFO position, right? So they may not be ready for the CFO position, but they would be for the assistant CFO. So we have a lot of options. My hope is that within the next 90 days, we'll have some good prospects and maybe have something for you, so.
And the reason I ask is if we know even for a quarter that we're not gonna have those wages, those salaries,
Right.
then we don't need
And
budget.
the other thing is if you're bringing someone in normally, CFO, you would bring them in probably on the lower end of that pay scale, right? I mean, not always, but I mean, that's good, So,
I have some sinus issues, so I'm sorry for that. Occasional, I may duck out just to get a drink of water
Yeah.
after this is fine.
If you need to take a minute,
It's all right. The director of finance and the CFO position is really a set salary, so that's gonna be one. But the other position isn't.
yes.
Right.
yeah. Councilman Pepero.
Okay. Nancy? Councilwoman?
Councilman, I get
I was so 4 minutes back.
So I think I answered my own question on one was the computer maintenance agreements. So it went from 25,000, there was none appropriated in 2019. This is just page 2 from the beginning. So we're budgeting 31,000. We budgeted nothing last year for the computer maintenance.
So that is for the Edmunds system, and it was budgeted in 2 different departments last year. So we've reduced those others and put it where it belongs in finance.
Okay. And then going on the next line item, for checking the scanners, fax machines,
Right.
and so forth. And I noticed that was a 350% increase.
Right, so the major increase in that is the vault maintenance. So evidently there was a new contract for maintaining the vault, and that's been the majority of that increase. Right, is that right, John?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay. No, just scanners and fax machines, so just as we're moving more into,
Electronic. Well, we did get new equipment too with
Yeah.
the check scanners, so that's a more efficient electronic way to do deposits, so.
I think I only have one other. What is this under? Let me just see, hold on. Page 2, under revenue administration. Where are we? I see there's an explanation, I just wonder if you could explain to me better. So in 20, under printing and binding, right? Again, I kept coming back in my mind to like, since everything is so electronic these days,
Right.
that to see a 40% increase in the cost.
Right.
Right.
We hope to do most things electronically, and we try to move towards that. I'm a big supporter of that.
Yeah.
But we still obviously do tax bills. This is the tax collection department. We do tax bills, printed out paper, and so because we have to do estimated tax bills, we have to do a double billing, that, an extra billing that we don't normally have to.
Is that something in the future that could be streamlined into something else besides just to?
Right now, the state statute drives that, and it must be done by, those paper documents.
Okay.
We do a lot electronically, and we provide it to people if they want it electronically too, but we must do that paper document also. So I'm hoping they change the legislation, but, the state's not always fast enough with that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy, I have a question, just to jump back, real fast to, the vacancies with the CFO and the assistant CFO.
Yeah.
I know you had brought up, the consolidation, saying that there was gonna be obviously more employees, so obviously, we would need that help. Now, there was talk of grants that were gonna be assisting in the consolidation for the fire department, and they were gonna be used to pay for some salaries and things that we would need to make that consolidation happen. Would we be able to use some of that to pay for that assistant CFO salary, or, like you said, payroll or whatever, in order to maybe overcome some of this problem?
So if I remember, I just briefly looked at some of the terms of the grant that was for the consolidation. It's not really for ongoing salaries. So if we had to add staff because of the consolidation, it probably would not cover that. But adding to that, back when we first started with this pandemic, the governor froze about $40 billion worth of spending and funds. And so this was one of those things. So, right now we're moving along with the consolidation, but not worrying about if we're ever going to get reimbursed for our expenses, because we're not sure we are. So we'll certainly keep track of them, and we'll certainly submit them to the state when it's all over. But, it's anybody's guess what will happen to that, because I think it was supposed to be $2 million.
Yeah, I anticipated that, and I know it was frozen. I just wasn't sure if that was something that would qualify to fall under that grant.
It might.
Okay.
Kathy, on page 2 of, the budget part, the presentation, there's other professional consultants. This is, I'm not looking at big savings here, but is there any, wiggle room with that number, or is that, it says because we haven't hit, over the last 5 years, our highest was 195, and we showed a little bit more there.
Right.
Is there any reason for why those increased?
So these are generally pretty well set by the professionals that we use. However, John and I were just talking earlier about one of the components in here, right, for Prime Point. And we're looking at maybe doing the payroll a little different and going not fully paperless, but somewhat paperless. And that might bring down our costs a little bit. So there might be some wiggle room in there.
Okay, that's good.
These fees are all flat fees, they're not based as a percentage of anything?
Most of them are, let me just look at all of them.
Like the financial advisor fee is $6,000, the health broker fee
Right,
is $80,000.
right. Those are all set.
So Prime Point, 95,000, you're saying you changed.
So, and only because it includes the software that we use with them, but also the, per payroll expenses. And that includes, printing out of checks and that type of thing. So the expenses involved with that. So we're looking at different options there to reduce some of those costs.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Under tax assessor.
Yep. Let me get there.
Where, once again, where you talk about, page 2 of the tax assessor section.
Yes,
So when we talk about other professional consultants.
right.
I also noticed that that was right around 120. And obviously you gave a breakdown there. It's, the highest that we hit was over the last 5 years was like 111.
Right.
I mean, do we feel those numbers, the calculations that are provided, are flat rates that's what's going to come in this year? I mean,
Right.
is there any wiggle room there?
And by the way, that was like, if you go from 16 to 7,
there's been massive inflation in the costs here.
Right.
You mentioned it, over the course of those 5 years.
A huge jump from 16 to 17.
So the largest variable here is really the tax appeal attorney, right? Because you never know from year to year whether you're going to have more or less tax appeals. So we actually reduced that down a bit this year, which may or may, and we only reduced it down because typically we haven't spent the same amount in other years. However, you know, this might not be the year to reduce the tax appeal attorney, right? And so, especially given the economy this year and the financial position that some people are going to be in, and the change in assessment that we might have on some of our properties for next year.
Would that be more so this year or next year?
So actually, you know, you may see the appeals next year, even though they can still try to appeal this year. It may have more of an effect for next year because, like, say, commercial properties or businesses that are assessed based on their revenue, right? They haven't lost the revenue. I mean, they've lost it this year, which will go into effect for next year. So I have a feeling we'll have some more appeals. I talked with the assessor about it last week, and there's no way to really tell, and he doesn't seem ultra concerned, but we'll face it if that comes, and I think we're okay with that, but I'm not sure we have that much more wiggle room in that line item.
Now, the breakdown, like you said, I see, and this is pretty good detail, the bulk of that is for the tax appeal attorney, as you were saying. But do we know where is that where the inflation and the cost over the past I'm still not understanding why.
Oh, what happened in 2017?
Yeah, how do we get
I don't
from
know.
$23,000 to spending over $100,000 over, to 111? Over the course of how'd that happen? Over the course of 3 years?
So, I'm not quite sure if it was
Yeah.
appeals or what, drove that. I'm not sure. So I'll check with the assessor, because although I see the numbers, I don't really know what happened back in 17,
Yeah,
but something happened.
I understand that.
Because looking at it, you really don't get a breakdown like you're getting a breakdown
Right,
for this one.
right.
You break it down to, the attorney, consultants, inspections, and the other one for the 30,000, well, we agreed at 20, but the other ones don't have a breakdown. So you went from 23,000 to 105,000 to 111.
Right. So
Pretty big
I'll
drums.
find out, because we can look back at the detail and just see what went on there, and if we can, figure it out from that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kathy, just staying on the tax assessment.
Yep.
On salary and wages. Can you just give a better understanding? I know the note has there one statement member who's on leave without pay for 1 year, where a salary of $40,000 still needs to be counted.
So we just talked about this earlier too. This is a case where we have a vacant, not a vacant, the employee's on leave. So we keep the budget for that employee in, but then we hired an additional employee to do the work there that the person on leave isn't there to do. So the workload became too much for the rest of the department. They hired somebody to do that. So that's basically the increase in the salary. Now, could we reduce the budget for the person who's on leave without pay? That's what I'm going to look at when we talk about the vacancies or where there's, employees on leave, and how much that might represent.
And the understanding is that he or she is going to come back.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Sure.
Anybody else? Got anything for Kathy on Department of Finance? Kathy, it looks like you're off the hook,
Okay.
but only for a moment, because we'll probably be coming right back to you. So, All right, so do we want to move on to Department of Public Works?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's make sure she's all right before we get started. Kathy, did you need a minute before we get started with?
No, Fred was kind enough to bring me a bottle of water, so I'm good.
That Fred's okay, Annie.
Yeah.
Is there any more water, Fred? I could.
Take care of me already.
Fred, can I get a water?
No, you're fine. Now, Fred won't work?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
If you cut engineering, you want it.
I've learned to bring my own.
You're the smart one.
No, God's all right.
Flag, buddy. Do we have, yeah, can we?
I'm gonna jump out.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yep.
Mr. Barkley, our Director of Public Works, thank you for joining us this evening. And if everyone is situated, if you want to just give us an overview, Chris, of your...
Okay, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure coming in front of you, for you guys. Not quite sure how this is going to go. I was going to give you an overview of what Public Works is to begin with.
Great.
Some of the things we take care of, some of the challenges we're looking at here, especially during these times. And then I'll let you in on some of the most concerning things to me at this point.
Good.
Public Works is consisted of 3 divisions. That's 156 budgeted positions normally. Right now, we're about at 143. Earlier this year, we got back all the, March 16th, we went back to half staff. Back to 100, back in sometime late May, I believe it was. We have a few more key positions, a few more very important positions coming up as retirements in the next 3 months. One is our safety coordinator. It's a very important job. Very impressed with that job when I came here from Mercer County. We didn't have one of those positions. That's a great job. Well needed. All the safety policies, procedures, drug testing, accidents, soup to nuts in that area. It's a great position. So I'll be looking to fill that shortly. Rich Worley's actually leaving July 1st. So, there's a supervisor in the road leaving September 30th. Victor Minnick, cleans this building. He's leaving, September 30th. And Annette Lepresti is leaving, July 1st. She's, I believe, at the Newhouse Center, correct? That's, some of the things we take care of, and you heard in my roads piece, in the last meeting, it's, 1,249 segments of road, 625 lane miles. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 inlets, 43 basins. I believe there's 66 islands, bunch of roadside mowing, 45 different parks, 28 different buildings. And in them 28 buildings, that's not a true number because in some of them locations, there's numerous buildings. Like for instance, Public Works, that's considered one. There's 18 buildings there. Go out to, we'll talk about the Echo Center for the ecological facility for a minute. We have the trash piece of that, of getting rid of things here is the most expensive in the state here, Mercer County. We're at about $108 to $18 a ton for tipping and $71.59 for running that to there. So that's $189.59 a ton. A little information about how many stops we do in trash pickup. 33,360 stops, 2 times a week. That's very impressive here. That's we collected 44,000 tons of trash last year. And we're on track to be higher than that this year. You can actually see the uptick, and I think it's because everybody's home so much. Our garage takes care of 366 vehicles, from construction equipment to lawnmowers, police cars. We take care of the fueling for water pollution control and Board of Education, and soon to be the fire consolidation. They already get their fuel from us now. Queue alerts for this year. This year so far, 5,038 queue alerts, of which we closed out 4,600. There's 238 in progress, and only 124 left. So, I mean, I'm looking at that as a short staffed as we are. That's pretty good. I'm chalking it up, so we're doing pretty good. We did some of our accomplishments so far this year. The Echo Center cleanup, it was neglected for quite some time. We were able to clean that up. It looks really good right now. We're really caught up on all of our things. We applied for and received the fourth largest grant from King Community Grant just the other day. We are the ninth largest town, we got the fourth largest in the state grant. That was a good thing. Some of our challenges, being short-handed, is the grass, the brush, just all the routine maintenance is suffering. And trying to make up the difference in the routine maintenance, our road program is suffering a little bit. We're a little slower than normal. To be expected. And I'll finish up with what's most concerning to me at this time. Pavement management, it's big. Trenton Water is a big concern because they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,600 cuts to make in their area. So that's, to put that in perspective, that's about half of Hamilton Township. We're going to cut the roads 11,000 times over the next 5 or 6 years. It's tough to manage around that. Asset management is a thing of mine. I deeply believe in it, and it's a matter of evaluation, inventory, and capital improvement plans for the future, making sure we're spending the money correctly. Stormwater management is another very big issue I'm very concerned with. We're way behind the 8 ball, and the staffing level just isn't there to meet the unfunded mandates that are in place. It's just very concerning, and I'm trying to work through how we're going to.
For stormwater management.
Stormwater management, yes. And of course, the maintenance and repairs on all the buildings and parks, and the next thing is all the health complaints. The abandoned buildings, it's just very tough to keep up with those. I believe there's about 100 outstanding right now. And these are, just to put it in perspective, these are the house that lives on the Great Street. It's the house with the 4-foot draft. It's just tough to take, and it's a lot of complaints. But, you know, like I said, I'm glad to be here. I started January 11th. Thrilled to be here. I love the job. People are great, and you know, everybody's giving it their best effort in these tough times, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
That's about all I have.
Okay. Chris, if I may, Council President, one of the things you brought up that I just have a question on, how are the tipping fees regulated in the county? You mentioned that the tipping fees are probably one of the highest, Mercer County is one of the highest in the state.
Yes, it is.
And how is that determined, and who regulates that?
Well, we bid, but there's a map here, a tipping map, and it shows the whole town.
Right.
The reason why the tipping is so high, I'm not sure. I couldn't speak to that. I can find that out for you. I assume it's because of the travel time. There's no very large dumps right here. So when you take trash out of Hamilton Township, it has to go to the transfer station and then be transferred to Rose landfill. But I assume that's part of it. Like you go down to Monmouth County, they have their own landfills.
All right, so is that typical trash when we're talking about trash pickup that's curbs?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 2 classifications, curbside and pickup. Curbside would be curbside, the other would be dumpsters.
Okay, and we outsource the pickup itself to another company, but we get charged the tipping fee?
Correct. We have to pay the tipping fee plus that,
No, it's an interesting,
that contractual price.
it's an interesting concept, and which is going to lead me to my next statement with with the new facility that just opened up over the Lamberton Road. That separates the trash. Naturally, they're looking to make, biofuel, so they separate the plastic. I'm sorry. They have, I know, I'm gonna take my mic with me when I turn around. But they take the trash and they separate it. You know, it could be metals, it could be plastics, and naturally they're looking for the food, so they could use that as a process, to create a methane gas that they're using to spin a generator. Have they been in contact with us at all? Because, you know, Fred's familiar with the project, and I'm wondering if that could be something that we could look into. Because it could be another source of a place that we could use for, a place for disposal.
Sure.
And I'm sure the fees will be, I would think they'd be a lot less.
More competitive.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not aware if they've reached out. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking into it.
Okay.
Chris? First of all, I just want to say this, everywhere and whoever I talk to about the department has sang your praises, so, and I know it's a big loss at the county level when you came over for this opportunity, but it was a big win for this administration and for Jeff, for Mayor Martin. So, and you did make my job difficult this evening because the budget that you presented is fairly, for all time, very lean. But I'm looking for ways to save anywhere and everywhere. And just on looking through this, on one item that I wanted to just mention first was personal training. That line item showed a rather large increase. I know that number was roughly, this is on page 4. Yeah, and I know that the big number right there is the training and supervisory employee training piece, aspect to that.
I saw that yesterday when I was going through the budget. That in actuality should only be $2,000, not $20,000.
Oh, I love you, thank you.
We just identified.
There you go. So I'm on fire today. Yeah, right, exactly. So
we're really looking at 5,000.
So that's,
Right?
And 18,000.
So we're really looking at
There's
5,000,
your day. All right.
23,000. Because I had that identified as well on mine, yeah.
no, that's beautiful. All right, I thought that looked a little, I didn't know if there was a bunch of people, that were, yes, there was a lot of training going on. The other question I had, and these are smaller ones, but I noticed that the uniform allowance, from last year to this year was the same that was proposed and adopted. I get that, the 30,000. But we've never, come close to that over the last 5 years. We've been way under that 25,000 number.
Right.
Any chance that
We can absolutely address that.
maybe look at, $5,000, something like that? Okay.
Yeah, clothing allowances, of course.
Okay.
As well as buildings and grounds, division management, and we can probably streamline that one as well.
Okay. Okay. Where would that be? Under, what line item would that be? You said,
Buildings and grounds.
buildings and grounds, you said, okay. Just so I can note.
Page 3,
Of,
the buildings and grounds.
I gotta find that section. Okay, yes, I see that. So we're saying that,
The first line item there, so we are budgeting, 17,000.
Yes.
So I would take a look and see how many, employees for buildings and grounds at parks, and, yeah, we can streamline that to probably, that down. Yeah.
Okay, because I noticed that, you know, it was roughly 15, a little over 15 in the prior year, so it's not a huge amount that you probably can, yeah, it's something. So maybe, okay. Can I go on, Council President?
Please do.
Chris, talk a little bit about, now, I noticed under materials and supplies, right, for the, I think this is page 8 of Public Works, yeah, thank you, thanks, Pat. Contract for snow. Now, I know we didn't get hit with a big, you know, obviously a big snow bill this year. Is that reflected in what you put in here?
I believe we already took some of that out, but I would shy away from that because our contract is up this year. So we do not know what the new rates will be. It's going to have to go back out to bid, and I believe that's in August.
So you think that contract for snow of 92,000 roughly is a good number for the early winter season this year?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair enough. I was just curious on that. Now, down in materials and supplies, obviously there's been a decrease, which is a great thing, and even in the last professional services, the one that we're just talking about, the other line item that I was talking about, there was a decrease too. So this is further decrease, that I'm looking to explore. The snow removal treated salt, that's 68,000. Can we reduce that at all? Is that something that?
That's a crapshoot, and again, no one knows when it's going to start, and we're in January. So once you think you're out of a short winter season, you still have to go into the next month to worry about it.
Okay. Okay. And the road materials under that same category, the patch, I noticed you dropped it from 364 from what was that, to now, which is budgeted 150. Just explain to me a little bit of that reasoning.
We're doing more capital work.
Okay.
So the blacktop is coming out of capital accounts instead of the operating.
Okay. So you think that number's
I think we're good with that.
good with okay, that's fair enough.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Chris, in this treated salt, does that include the brine? Or is that a separate figure?
There should be I'm not looking at that page right now, but straight salt, regular salt
Right.
is used to make salt.
So that's the 60, that's used to make the brine?
Make brine.
Okay.
Brine is simply salt water out of 23.3%.
Okay. So typically we use straight brine anymore. We don't really use salt too much.
We try to because that's the money savings. But it's only a tool. Sometimes when the ice is already on the road, you need salt. Brine doesn't work. Brine is a pre-treat. Salt is a treat to get the ice to go away.
Might seem like a silly question, and I'm not a weatherman, but then again, I probably could be because they seem like they guesstimate most of the time, but, we see it time after time, and you know where I'm probably going with this, is that, the forecast might call for snow, and the brine trucks are out there, and we're brining all the roads, which is the cost, and it never snows,
Well, I would answer that by saying brine is very cheap.
Okay.
And it's a great insurance policy because what it does is if it does come, it keeps the road safe at the beginning of the storm. And it is, when I say very cheap, 1 ton of salt, $55-$60, makes 1,000 gallons. So it's, when I say it's cheap, it's really cheap.
Okay.
All that brine in town, I don't know, I didn't bring those numbers with me, but it's minimal.
Well, to be quite honest, I was just educated because I didn't know you used the salt to make the brine, so shame on me.
So brine is 17.3.
Okay.
The brine is 23.3% salt. The reason it's that number is because if it's any higher, the salt falls out of it. Water can only keep 23.3% up in it. That's the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, just while we're on snow, on page 10, it just caught my attention. It's storm and snow removal food.
Yes.
And I mean, it was really just a jump of the numbers too that I noticed. It was like actual spent was around 6,000, then it went down to 3,400 approximately, but we're budgeting 9,500 for that.
Yeah, it's a direct result of union contracts, and the number of people working for those firms. So it is a direct result of how many times guys are in through the new periods. So, and again, it's linked to a union contract.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Chris, under, maintenance of other equipment, this is under, page 7 of Public Works. Now, I know it's, the last 2 years, it was consistent at 6,100, and I know the big item, it shows up as, but we never even approached that in the last 2 years. And we're consistent with that number for budgeted number this year. And with the major expense being, I think, truck wash, the service contract?
For the truck wash.
Yeah.
We have,
The 5,000?
Yeah.
I believe there's a truck wash in our facility that is not quite finished, and you cannot use it in ice cold weather. So the truck wash, I believe there's a number put in there to take the trucks.
Yeah, I think we are.
The truck stop.
Did you say our truck wash is not quite finished?
Well, there was a building that was supposed to be built a number of years ago, and how many years ago, Chuck? 7?
I've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
We just got the truck wash up and running like 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
And it's only, it's an outdoor washing station is what it is. So you gotta keep it winterized. So
You
you
have to
can,
keep it winterized, and the truck wash itself was on the mandate through the stormwater. You can't wash vehicles outside without having the water, recycling it, and putting it into a sewer system. That being said, it's a very intricate system with no building around it, so it's very hard to use in the winter. It's like using a car wash in the dead of winter, with no building around it. So it's,
So are you taking the trucks down to Bordentown?
that was the thought process this year, am I correct?
yeah, rather than to pursue building the building in order to save some money.
How were they washed, like, I mean, this is obviously predates, but how were they washed last year?
You could wash them out in the truck wash station if the temperatures are up, like if you get warmer weather.
Like
you
spring,
can- you can-
summer? Yeah.
Well, even in the winter,
Winter.
if it's 40 degrees
Okay.
or, warms up, you can wash the trucks out. Then you have to winterize it again. But I mean, you can wash them out right on.
I'm sorry, is it Chuck?
Yes.
I apologize. Could you make sure to speak into the mic so that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my mic was off when I just said that, by the way.
When the light's on.
It's on now.
There you go.
Yeah. You can use the truck wash sporadically, depending on the weather. So you may be able to use it if there's warmer weather in the winter, but one thing you want to do is wash them out as soon as you're done with the salt in the back of the trucks. Save the life of the trucks.
Okay.
And I believe the building was one of the things that was reevaluated and we funded it, it's not funded anymore. And
That's correct.
$1 million that we decided not to move ahead with that building. So that's $1 million that came out of our capital
Okay.
just recently.
Okay. I did note something, and I can't find it right now, vehicle maintenance. And I don't know what page that's on, so if you guys, someone can shout out and help me. I don't know what section that fell under, but I remember noting vehicle maintenance for some reason, and I can't find it. I don't know.
Is that the garage budget?
That might be garage. What page, that's under, it's under the garage then, I guess.
Should be.
Or maybe it was a subcategory, darn. Hold on. I thought I had it under, there was a line item for vehicle maintenance, but it might be under, might be like a sub line item. Let me say.
Vehicle maintenance is the last section of the.
Oh, it is? Okay, yes. So, under other professional consultant, well, 5% increase, I was just curious, on this, almost the last page, page 2, but all the way in the back of the Public Works. Maintenance of other equipment, it's the second page under vehicle maintenance. So, we've been consistently, below 24,000 on that one. And this year, there's, a rather larger increase, and I know the breakdowns there, I guess one of the big ones is,
Can you tell me, I'm sorry, which sector are you on?
so it's in the Edmunds document, the Public Works document, it's sort of like the last 4 pages, but it's page 2, and it's under other professional consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Last year, we spent 17,000 out of that, and we budgeted 36, which was larger than in our previous years, but we were around 17,000 we spent.
Almost double, right? From 17 last year.
More than double.
The projection was for 36, so it's,
Right.
it's not like you're going that far off of that projection.
But last.
But last year,
15,000,
yeah,
17,000.
17, yeah.
The most we ever used in that budget was 23,000 back in 17.
Right.
While he's looking for that, was there an answer given as far as the money that was saved for snow removal last year?
No, I asked that.
You didn't ask that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did.
I do say.
I'll follow up with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a direct result of some of these line items being just very, very unpredictable. And one is service to the gas pumps, towing if needed, and that's when it's needed. You don't need it. Auction vehicle preparation, testing fuel lines under the DEP, yearly maintenance and warranties on the garage lifts. Again, very important. Inspection of diesel vehicles, striping of vehicles, and another piece. And it's unpredictable. Again, especially like the towing and licenses and fees, and that's a direct result of how many vehicles you get new that year, things of that nature.
Can we take 10 off that one?
I would say, our public works garage, what we've been doing the past 5 or 6 years is we're trying to always keep it at $50,000 a month, because it is very unpredictable. You don't know what vehicles or equipment you're going to need to repair, and obviously we can't let things sit. So what we try to do with the garage is give them an allowance of $50,000 a month, so that we can get to the end of the year and we would be okay. And we've been doing that consistently every year, except last year we ran into some bigger pieces of equipment that needed repair, and because the repairs were so extreme, it really took us over the edge. So it scares me to think to take, whether we're spending the money in this subcode 028.
Or another one.
Right. We try to not touch the public works garage, the vehicle maintenance budget, because it is so unpredictable, and we have consistently done a very good job at keeping it at $50,000 a month, with the exception of last year. And last year was an eye-opener to us to realize that, you don't know what's going to happen, and if they are big pieces of equipment or numerous pieces, so it scares me to say to take
Right, and-
$50,000 away from it.
And to that point, you could look at the whole control total, which shows all of your O&E, and that's what you're talking about. They had 604,000 budgeted, but they had expenses of 648,000, right? We had the transfer in last year, so,
Oh,
and I think what you're saying, if it's not used in one line item,
it's gonna be something else.
sometimes we have to, we can absorb it in another line item and maybe not have to do a transfer, but in this case, they obviously had some big repairs
I can-
last year, so.
All right, I can respect that. Thank you, that's good.
Chris, I just wanted to go back, I hate to go back to snow because I hate thinking about the snow, especially in the summertime. But, I go back to, under Public Works on, page 8. I was just looking, the amount of money that we did not spend in snow removal last year, I know we don't know what the future holds. Was there any savings that we could potentially use though from last year to this year?
I believe there, and I was just brought up to speed, there is a, John Calderon, is there a snow, trust that we try to fund with the leftover money?
Yes, and I can provide that.
Yeah, there's a snow trust, when nothing happens, the theory there being put it in the trust, and that way you can keep the number year to year the same, but when you have that spike, you use a trust to level it out for you. That's the theory, anyway, I haven't seen it work yet, I was at the county and it was always you have to find the money now, but that seems to be the way to keep the budget kind of smooth.
Where does that trust stand right now?
John's gonna look into that, you said you're gonna look, get us that number, okay.
I think there's about 268,000, give or take a few.
Would that be counting last year's money as well?
I don't believe last year's money was put into the trust.
It was reallocated?
I'm not really certain. I know we had mentioned that it should be put into the trust, but when I looked in there, I didn't see that had happened yet.
So hypothetically, just to dovetail off what Councilman Papero just said, you can use that for, like, could you use that for contract for snow?
Yes.
Yes.
That 92,000?
Yes.
But does that help us, Kathy, on, how does that work?
So generally, and we have to verify what's in the trust, I trust you, but I haven't looked at it, and we could just go back to the AFS and see, and it'll have that trust amount. And unused amounts in your current budget should be transferred and can be transferred to the trust so that you can build that up in case you do have, massive storms one year that, you just don't anticipate budgeting for that big of an amount. So you could use it for some of your regular snowstorms during the year, but generally, you're supposed to, use your budget, and then if you need the trust, then you end up using the trust. So I would again be, it's not usual to take an entire line item out and say, okay, we're gonna take it all from the trust this year. So.
And it's not just for snow, it's a storm trust account, so it could be used for any type of storms that we have, hurricanes and such.
I would like to just take a look at that, though, just to get an idea of where it's been and if there's, if it's,
Whether we've tapped into it, at any point, like at what point over the past 5 years have we needed to tap into?
it's gotta be probably in a decent position right now, I would think, just because of the,
Like I said, the preliminary, I believe Linda thinks there's 260.
Yeah, but it's
Well, we have to
260-ish,
verify.
but I believe the last time we used the money was in 2018. And I'm quite certain 2019 leftover money was not deposited into that trust account.
is that rather high, Linda? I mean, your experience?
The amount of this money in the trust, it's just, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Because if you have a year like we did a few years ago, we were having a
Could wipe
lot of
it right
storms
out.
and we're paying for contractors to install it, and that money goes very quickly. And, we did use it a lot that year. So no, I would say that's not a lot of money. We're trying to build it up, and we were
Okay.
lucky that so far that this year we didn't have a lot of, we didn't need to use a lot of our money, and that we could put that money into the trust, but, yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Typically, naturally, this goes to contractors, right?
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it. And some of the snow removal we do ourselves. Is there a point where the contractors get called in? Does it depend on the significance of the storm? You know, if it's not a significant storm, we handle the basic snow removal on our own because we have snow equipment, correct?
Yes.
I mean, it's not like they're on call, they may be on call, but a storm's coming in, and although it's not a significant storm, is there a point where they're told not to come in? Yeah, how does that basically work?
I'd rather answer that since he wasn't here for snow, for the last
Yeah, I
storm.
wish you would, but yes, there is a trigger, and I believe the trigger is 4 to 5 inches.
4 to 5 inches, depending on what's coming afterwards, what we
Right.
think we can handle. If we're going into secondaries, if we're staying on primaries. Every storm is like a hand of cards. You never know what you're gonna get and how you deal with it.
Right, it's a crapshoot, I understand
That's
that.
just a rule of thumb, about 4 to 5 inches.
But that has a basis on what we try to allot the following year. So naturally, at this pool of money that we're allotting now, if half of it isn't used, right, that would go into the trust, right? So would that affect the number the following year? Or would it still relatively stay the same?
I think we try to budget the same number every year.
Okay.
My history, the history here is try to shoot for the same number every year. My history, I like to use a 5-year average, a rolling average.
In the meantime, you're building up that trust.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's where I was going. Yep, you read my mind. Under solid waste, ecological on page 2, on rental of equipment. I know you have a note here that, so in 2019, we only spent $25,779, and that's going up to $86,430 now. I did read the explanation that the company that we were using for that was doing it free of charge to the town, and is now going to be charging us $21,240 each time. Is there another option, whether it's done internally or different companies?
I'm looking into the options, and to speak a little bit about that, I bet you there was a lot of money left over in 19, because if you saw the ecological facility in January, they didn't do it last year. So I did go in and I rented a crusher and got rid of some of the solids, and we contracted with Britain to come in and take that. It was an enormous pile of brush. And again, we can rent a chipper like that internally for about $30,000 a month. The problem's not there. The problem is you still need to get rid of it. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for us to grind it and keep it there, because it's not a usable product. It has to be further processed, and we're not set up for that.
So if this company does the grinding and the removal
Grinding and removal. And
for the 86 versus 30,000 a month, and that doesn't include removal?
Correct.
Okay.
And my preliminary investigation in how to do this is going to be going out to public contract for a grinding service with removal. And my estimates is that it needs to be done 4 times a year. That's with no anomalies of a crazy storm in the middle of the summer. But 4 times a year, I'm hoping to do that for under $25,000 each time. And again, that can be offset with some costs, because some of the, in the ecological facilities, there is income. Commercial is income coming in. We have contracts with 4 local towns, one being West Windsor is the biggest, at, I believe that's $75,000 a year. Robbinsville's $30,000 a year. Chesterfield is just a couple of $1,000s a year. Mercer County Highway Department is somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000 a year, and the Park Commission. They're all contractual. Every time they bring them in, it's about $5.50 a yard. So, when a truck comes in, it's it's charged $100. So there is some income that can cover that. We're under some discussions on how to cover that and get that down. But that's the research I'm doing now. I hope to have that purchasing process in front of council shortly.
So this number is just based on the one company, and you're still doing research on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And you think we need to hold it at 86,000?
I think that'll work this year, yes.
Okay.
Again, depending on where the bids go, and it's been an eye-opener to me when I was looking at the ecological center. We had it cleaned out one day, and cleaned out, I mean, there was nothing there. And you looked at it 8 days later, and I'm thinking, like, wow, like, you can't really believe how much brush goes in there. The pile that's in there right now is, I believe, about 23 days worth. I mean, it's crazy the amount of brush that comes in. And in the breakdown, our public works staff brings about half of that in. Half comes from the residents, and then there's a small percentage that come from from West Windsor and the other towns. But it's, the residents bring in about half of all of that.
Wow.
But again, the upside of the ecological center is, brush diverted from the land center.
Yeah.
Every bit of brush that goes through there, you do not have to pay the $189 a ton to get rid of it the other way. So the savings last year, it was 1.25 million. If it went to the landfill, it would cost an extra $1.2 million. So there is an upside, but there's also you have to do it as clean as possible, you know.
Now, the grinder that we have to rent, that's costing us $21,000 a week when we rent it. Is that right?
Not per week.
What?
Not per week.
It's approximately $30,000 a month. It's a $1 million machine.
Oh,
I mean, so
it says 21?
4 times a year.
Yeah. No, it says weekly? No?
that shouldn't be weekly.
Well,
I'm not even looking at it.
okay.
Well, again, rental is the way to go because it's a $950,000 to $1 million machine.
That's where we go.
That means a lot of maintenance.
Okay.
And from what I understand, if you don't have to own one, don't own one.
Okay.
It's,
Okay.
And those are like, the machines you see the, tree services towing around?
no, these are bigger than that.
They're bigger, they're more heavy
they're
duty.
giant. These are things that a large machine grabs logs the size of this table and just keeps dropping them on a conveyor. And the conveyor slowly moves it through a grinder and it comes out shredded. It's a really, impressive machine.
Heavy duty.
Again, it's a $975,000 machine.
So when we rent that, they move it in and move it out?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Chris?
Covered pretty good.
Yes. Councilman Carabelli.
I just want to take a look at the capital a little bit. Does anyone have any other questions on the O&E stuff?
I have a silly question, I think. Under the rental of porta potties, you took that away.
I don't know where they.
You don't get a porta potty ever?
We took that out of the union contract.
Huh? Oh, just the back end.
I just happened to.
Yeah.
It should have been a minimal amount of money anyway.
That's why I said
Yeah.
it's only $1,000, but at least, oh, we're saying that they're not gonna have a porta potty in it? Okay.
He asked me to cut back, that's where I went.
Cut back on Brandon.
I guess, I saw several capital line items, and I know some were obviously from 2019, that we're looking to do in 2020. You know, we're halfway through the year. There are several that were listed here. Are there any, like, ones that are, priorities for this year, and then some that can hold off for next year?
We already did that, and the answer to that is yes. We had a priority list, and it was very short. It was about $600,000 worth.
Okay.
And that was between parks, roads, and OEM. And then it's equipment, and it's just right off the top of my head, it's a 60-inch zero-turn mowers, 72-inch, a Kubota utility vehicle, and the large item in there is a 75-foot bucket truck. The reason that's a priority is we only own one, and it's very old, it's getting through, and, again, Chuck worked on it for quite some time, working through the specifications for a new truck, and we have them finalized at this point, and it's a priority because it takes 1 year to get the truck.
Okay.
Extra bid.
That's perfectly fine. I noticed several items on that page 6 of the public facilities projects that are listed there for, specifically for say, and, you know, we can't expect all of them to get done this year, realistically.
Exactly why I brought Chuck tonight. It's
Okay.
in his place.
Can I see that, Liz?
It's page 6, and then there's some actually that are on page 5 too.
Yeah, there's,
I mean, I see roofing, exterior painting,
yeah.
gutters, kitchen remodel, floors, HVAC system needs to be replaced, window treatments, additional lighting.
Yes,
And the ones that we put in for Public Works say PW on there.
to clear that up a little bit, I believe some of them are B and G, and some of them come out of the rec. I'm sure
Right.
that's what they're going right
So,
there.
I wouldn't be able to answer for the recreation ones.
Tell them the ones, the items that.
Yeah, Sands Rec.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's gets gray there, like gray area.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, which one's on PW?
The ones for PW.
Wilson Center,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that roof is a lot more expensive than for example, the Sand House roof. I guess it's more.
it's a different
square footage.
material. The Wilson Center's,
Flat.
it's, yeah, it's pitched. It's got a pretty good pitch, is why it's lasted so long. It was built in '77, still the original roof. We've been tracking,
Oh, it's the original roof from 1977.
'77. It's got a good pitch on it, but it is a flat roof. It's not enough of a pitch for a shingle roof like Sign House is. But, I got an estimate from one of the local roofing companies to have it removed and replaced. And that was the estimate that I got. That's why I put that in. And we're also looking to try and see if we can use, CBDG funding for that, which we're not sure yet.
Yeah, we didn't get an answer.
We didn't get an answer on that yet, but we did throw that out there. We're
Okay.
looking for wherever we can possibly get that.
And I apologize, because you're right, most of these do rec, and they have rec next to them, so they're probably with, Kathy Fitzgerald, so.
If you want me to help.
don't feel bad, I highlighted the same ones.
Yeah, I highlighted.
This is might seem like a silly question to you, but you mentioned the fact that it's a flat, semi-flat roof, right? And, which means, although it's the original roof, it's probably been repaired. Right? Just like we do flat roofs on our schools, right? We, seems like we're constantly repairing our roofs, right? Which always led me to believe over the course of time, why hasn't everybody come up and redesigned their roofs? I've seen throughout my career in several different municipalities around the state of New Jersey, mostly in Monmouth County, where they had schools that had flat roofs, and they changed the design of the roofs to get away from the flat roofs and put a regular standard roof up so you can put shingles on it and get away from these constant repairs. And although this would be, the school budget would be more appropriate for that, but that's what I'm leaning to, is that throughout Hammond Township, all our schools are flat roofs and we're constantly repairing them. Why hasn't anybody come up with that idea to put a regular standard frame roof in and put a shingle roof on or a metal roof on and be done with it? That's all. Just a food for thought.
Okay. Thank you.
So, this is probably
You still on capital?
capital, this is probably a dumb question. On the F-550 crew cab, we can't just fix that vent frame? That's not possible, I guess. That's listed under, you know what, that page 9, that might be under, rec too. Hold on. Is it rec?
Yeah, it's under parks, yeah.
that?
Oh, no.
Oh, it's roads.
It is roads. You're
Yeah,
right.
Is that 317? Is that what 317?
that was,
So you know what, just while you're figuring that out, Ant, I just want to go back to the Wilson Center roof. Is there any leakage right now?
We have been, I'm sure you can double check, there's been Q alerts, and we've had, some leakage for the last couple of years. We were chasing down, either air conditioning leaks, and there are some leaks through the penetrations. A few years ago, I got a report from a roofing company that said you could redo the penetrations and restore the roof for $75,000, and I got another estimate that was $175,000, and they just didn't make sense. So we did more research, and the original company said, no, that, they went back and they did some errors in their estimates. That's why I went to a different company this time around, met with a roofing professional, and went over the entire roof. And we've gotten our money's worth out of that roof to this point. It's really a good design because water doesn't stay on it. The water does run off. One of the things we want to do is address the runoff and redo the coping around the roof. The metal's an expensive part of it too. So, but there are some roof leaks
Okay.
in the building that we're constantly addressing.
So that's, you know, we don't want to delay something that's causing additional damage.
Yes.
Well, and I just want to, I would imagine just from my own personal experience, since my house does have flat roofs, we did look into pitching and it was about 3 times the cost of just replacing the roof altogether. You know, just building that infrastructure. I know, and this is just, I'm just throwing out too, as we look at that, maybe there's a way to build an environmental piece. I don't know if there's grants out there to, again, this is, because my own personal experience, you know, some of what New York City's done by painting them white, or, you know, if they're solar, or, you know, so that's what some of the schools are doing too, is put the solar panels on top of the flat roofs. It seems to be more common commercial than residential, but, you know, I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, well, that's what, I mean, we talked about it, 1977, that's a long time. And if we're having active leaks, yeah.
You want to go back to the bed frame?
that frame on the F-550.
The F-550, I was just reading over here, we have a reason for the equipment to replace a 2011. Now, mind you, these life of the equipments are 7 to 10 years, so we're right there. We're at 9.5 years or so. It has a bent frame, we can't plow snow with it anymore. You can salt with it, but.
So you like the dual purpose of them, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that's just for the winter piece of it. We also use it for a patch truck year-round, patching
Okay.
potholes, so, you know, it'll be a 9-foot plow, and, you know, when you need a plow, they're very valuable pieces.
I thought about when we're talking about the 2,600 gallon brine application unit. I know we've listed, 3 this year in the capital. I mean, any thought on maybe, spacing that out where you're getting a better price and you want to do it all at once?
Well, again, they take a little time to get, and the ones that we have right now are very old. Do we have an age of them? They're very old, and just being used for salt, it's salt water, they rust out. And
They rust out.
You don't get the life that you know. The newer ones, the ones that are budgeted are coming in as stainless steel, so they should last us a lot longer.
Speaking of salt, I missed part of the salt discussion, so forgive me if I'm going over ground you already covered. But, do we keep an inventory of salt
Yes,
on hand?
yes.
So how much do we purchase each year?
We're at about, I believe we're at about 80% capacity right now.
Okay.
What's the total?
That's a good question.
So $74,000 was spent last year, that's probably about 1,200 tons.
74,000, and that's,
I would assume
Purchased.
that's how much we purchased last year.
Where is that on the Edmonds? Do you have that on the?
I don't have that statistic on there. I just have some spreadsheets that I made up.
Is that under a specific line item that we budgeted for this year?
First For the salt?
Salt.
Yes, I'm sorry. That would be under the road department. Probably under O3O, which is materials and supplies.
Under road. What's that number again? I'm sorry. 030.
Materials and supplies, that's pretty much.
That's the one that we covered. No.
What page is that? Pat, do you see it? Oh, yeah, 030.
Maybe that's why.
Cold winter patch, high removal, treated salt, yeah.
Treated salt, right?
Yes. For 68,000.
Any chance we can reduce that because, you know, we have 80% now?
Yeah, can you help us find
Oh,
out?
I'm sorry, page 8 of, and I think I mentioned that earlier.
That's all that we have sitting in.
Again, crapshoot, we only had 80%, so we need to fill it up 20 more percent. And then again, we can, but we don't know when winter's gonna start.
How about 10,000?
As long as we needed it, we could provide it.
All right. We'll cross our fingers with you.
Okay.
You're gonna be yelling at me if there's a snowy late fall. I'm gonna get hell.
You get a call from the mayor.
But honestly, how much is 20%? How much does that usually cost us? Like, you know, for,
20% of the capacity of the building, I would think 20% is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 tons, 40,000.
okay. So we're still giving up, and hopefully, you know, but we don't know what the winter's gonna look like. I know.
We also provide salt for Board of Ed too, so when we do have a storm,
They do reimburse us, though.
yeah, but we have to have
Yeah,
it.
right.
The conversation was, we hold the salt for the Board of Ed, and they reimburse for what they use.
Okay. And they probably have, they might have a greater need to spread salt on walkways and that sort of thing.
I hope they're not using all walkways.
All right, that shows you what I know.
We need new sidewalks quicker than normal. But yeah, the parking lots and all the walking areas.
Okay.
You guys are gonna have my number on speed dial if it snows a lot.
So,
Magnesium chloride or.
Yeah,
we'll think about it.
Yeah, just think, yeah, I'm not,
We'll think about it. Maybe we will, maybe we
me
won't.
will. Yeah.
It's just.
They got us nervous.
Yeah.
Can't control the weather.
I'm gonna get
So, Chris, go back to, and sorry to bounce around, but going back to the Capitol, playground equipment is under there's a line item for playground equipment that's under you
Yes.
for 125. And do we really anticipate that we're even gonna be using the playgrounds again this year? Like, is that something we need to do this year?
Whether you use them or not, we have so many playgrounds, if you don't budget a certain amount of money and plan on replacing the older pieces, you're gonna get caught behind the ball somewhere down the road at a future date. And one of the things we've been doing is putting in poured-in-place surfaces for the playgrounds, which is a little bit more expensive, but it's allowed us to reduce how much we're spending on the, engineered wood fiber mulch. There's a lot of problems with that, kicking out. It's by far the cheapest way to go, and for some things, it's still the best way to go, like for swing sets where you have a wide area, but for some of the smaller pieces, we get the poured-in-place surfaces, and that's expensive.
What is
Just
it
one, pardon?
Poured in place?
Poured in place.
It's like a rubber.
Poured, oh, it's a poured rubber, okay,
Yeah,
I'm with you, I'm with you.
It's a two-part system. They'll pour a base and then they pour a piece on top. The ADA accessible piece over at Veterans Park at the north entrance has that surface on it.
Okay.
And that reduces some of the maintenance that we have to do constantly on the playgrounds as well. So we have so many pieces of equipment. One of the things we're working on is to try and get you an actual number. But we have
And this is, the 125 is for 3 parks.
It's for, you could spend, for 3 small pieces, older pieces at different parks. There's numerous pieces at the parks.
Yeah.
But if you got an activity center, say for a 5 to 12-year-old, with the surfacing, you could spend 45,000 easy
On one piece,
Yeah,
even.
one piece with the surfacing.
Yeah, this was 19, 3 parks were accounted for in this 125. And, okay, I mean, that's the explanation. It's a cyclical thing. You have to kind of keep up with, things before they get too broken down. And that becomes a hazard. We've seen that in the past, right, with some of the...
I've lived through that in the past.
Okay. Okay.
On the generator installations, we don't have generators now at those locations?
We have some generators, yes.
Yeah, we have a generator in this building. The generator we have in this building was put in before 60s, maybe 70s, a long time ago. And it only does the basement area of the building.
Okay.
Now, we modified it when we increased the computer usage and the servers, so we modified it to cover certain things, but it doesn't cover the entire building.
Okay.
We got a new electric service put in a few years ago. We had new lighting put in. We've got just last year, so now we've got a consistent evaluation of the load that this building uses, the energy load that it uses. So what we're working on now is to have a generator placed out back that'll handle the entire building in case of an emergency. And when Sandy hit, we ran the police station for 4 days on the diesel generator that's there. So you never know, with a windstorm or a snowstorm, you don't know what's going to take out the building.
Yeah.
So you place the, generator, right now it's in the basement.
Right now, it's in the basement. That's correct.
How many square feet does that take up in the building?
The generator?
Yeah. Not that much.
No, so about your stage.
50 square feet, maybe?
About the size of that stage, Chef, if not smaller.
Yeah, about half.
So
of
not
it.
not a ton of space.
Yeah, and,
About the
and that's
same space.
including the fuel tank.
About the same amount of space outside the building? When you,
What's that?
will it take up about the same amount of space outside the building when you move it
No.
outside?
No, there's a generator out back right now. It's going to be probably similar to that. That's it. What I want to get is a sound attenuated enclosure for the generator as well, and I want it to run off of natural gas. So, we don't have to worry about the diesel. There's, fewer restrictions from DEP on natural gas than there is on diesel.
Okay.
I just have one last question, I'm done. On the proposed capital road program, realistically, when, can you get some of them done this year?
Oh, yes, we're working on some of them. We finished Country Lane already. We're working on Sylvan Avenue as we speak, which will be done shortly. Again, we are short-staffed, so we are behind schedule, but yeah, we're knocking them out. And we do anticipate getting a number of them done.
Yeah.
We're down, but we're not out.
I hear it all the time, like, when's my road getting done? Is it gonna get done this year?
Chris,
So,
how'd those aprons turn out on Country Lane?
Good. Yeah,
What's-
We were at that for a visit.
Oh, all right.
Go ahead.
No, that was.
That was it? Nancy, you had something?
No, I realize it's in the press.
Okay.
Yeah, a few of my questions are on the park still.
Everybody good? All right, so unless anybody else has anything for the good of the order, I'm going to thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your help. And this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Monday night will be a lot more fun than Sunday, I promise. It is what it is.